What's up, you guys? Welcome. I'm LJ or Laura Jane, and I am the author and the creator of the Tender Tinder Tales. And this is my first vid here on this channel. And I'm excited to share with you, even as it's a little bit racy and revealing, this new book and channel with you, which is called the Tender Tinder Tales. You can see it says it's a memoir by me, Laura Jane. And yeah, I thought today I'd just start to introduce you to it, share some of the introduction, read you the first chapter, and just start to invite you into what this is about. So this is the first time this is being shared with anyone, anywhere, and I'm glad to have you here. So you've got the Tender Tinder Tales. You've got some pretty racy sounding chapters, which maybe I'll read you some of those first. Chapter 1, Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places. Chapter 2, Sexual Liberation in Play. Chapter 3, A Slut Just Means a Woman Who Likes to Have Sex. Chapter 4, The Old High School Flame as the Big Dick Portal. Chapter 5, C1 and C2 and the catfish start to dating. Chapter 6, Look me in the eyes and tell me you love me. Chapter 7, The Viking and my magical vagina. Chapter 8, The Time I Left the Player with the bloodstained sheets. Chapter 9, The Depressed Art Professor. Chapter 10, He Recognized Me from a Past Life. Chapter 11, The Soft Dick. Chapter 12, Losing My Cool with the Sexy, Sweet Lead Singer. Chapter 13, Looking Outside versus Looking Within. Chapter 14, Realizing the True Love That I Want. Chapter 15, When Attachment Styles Bite You in the Ass. And Chapter 16, The Real Union. That's the thing. So, just to share a little bit of how this book came about for me, because really it's been kind of magical and more like a divine download. And this is the way that I've come to like to write some of the books I've put out so far, which my other books have been more in the realms of yoga, which interestingly this book, you could say, has a theme that goes with yoga. But in my first years of dating as a newly separated, soon-to-be divorced woman of age 49, and this will come out more in the chapter, I hadn't really dated much, and I started to date a lot. And I had some interesting experiences and a lot of realizations, adventures, and awarenesses and growth, which wasn't always pleasant. A lot of it humiliating and hard and painful. But at some point I started to realize I felt like I had some stories to tell from these times, which a lot of my dating did happen through the dating apps and even Tinder, so that's where that name came through. But then that title started to come through, that it was going to be called the Tender Tinder Tales. And so what I like to do with a book idea when it's coming in is I sat with that title one day and said to myself, and kind of maybe my inner self, my higher self, God, the universe, whoever's helping, what are the chapter titles to this book? The Tinder Tales. Tender Tales. Sometimes I shorten it and just call it the Tinder Tales. But these are the chapters that came through, the chapter names. And then how I went about it is each day, once I started to write the book, I would write the next chapter. And I would sit with that chapter title and just see what came through. Wasn't even sure what I was going to write. And they're all fairly short chapters, simple, and that's how I like to write as well. But it really surprised me what came through, because not only were these stories sharing some of the adventures and the realizations, but also it became more of like a self-help book and a book about some things I've been realizing and opening up to in my life, and even sense of spirituality. So I'm excited to share it with you, and it may not be what you think, but let's keep going. So here is the little introduction. This humorous and heartfelt memoir, and this is me describing it after I'd written it. It was like, okay, here's what it turned out to be. This humorous and heartfelt memoir, delivered in a witty short story format, unveils and reveals some of the wild, weird, and wondrous experiences found in the world of online dating, in a search for something between sexual discovery and simple intimacy. From catfishing to coked up demands for expressions of love, this real and raw reveal shares the intimate adventures of a newly single, spiritual, nearly 50-year-old chick looking for love in all the wrong places. The story culminates in some deep realizations about love and sex addiction, a need for true self-love, and transcending and shifting it all with more self and spiritual connection. This is a modern tale highlighting some of the potential maladies of dating, looking for connection and finding love in these changing times, with the eternal lesson that to look outside for love is often futile. The climax to these unfolding adventures becomes the invitation to cultivate the love within more as the ideal evolved shift in this aspect of our lives and our relationships. So, let's go ahead into chapter 1, and then I'll be coming back each day to share a chapter with you if you want to stay tuned. I'm here at my apartment in Huntington Beach, where I now live with my new boyfriend, and that's a fun thing to see has come through on the other side of all this. But let's get back to chapter 1. More on that later. Chapter 1, Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places. This book is for you and for me. This is a quest and reveal of some of what I've experienced and realized in being a newly single, nearly 50-year-old proposed hottie entering the modern dating scene as a pretty much newbie. Some background for you. As a teen and young adult, I was always boyfriend girl, with just a few long-term relationships, keeping me from ever really doing the dating thing. As my almost 20-year marriage had started to come to a crumble, painful as that always is, I was fresh and raw and eager and hopeful. I was the one who had provoked the marriage separation, our value differences over things like politics, yeah, you can guess, religion, social issues just drove us to fighting too much to work with. So we initiated separation, although striving to be friends and even still family through it all. I would say now, 5 years later, we've done a pretty good job of maintaining that. He has now created a new happy life for himself in a new state, honoring his values, finding community and fulfillment. I'm so glad for him. I feel I will always love and care about him and want him to be happy. He's always been very good to me, honestly, which I can actually say about all of these long-term boyfriends before him in my younger years as well. Good men, treated me well, loved me sweetly, nothing to complain about there. So thank you to my high school boyfriend Scott, my college boyfriend Rob, and my ex-husband Greg. I did form one sorta relationship through these Tender Tinder tales, through a Tinder connection with a man I fell in love with during the pandemic, so it was mainly virtual. He really did try to treat me well. Although some of our struggles you'll find in a future chapter, it definitely got toxic as fuck. But that is, I now see, because we both were not actually emotionally available nor ready for real intimacy. We both got toxic, and it got toxic for both of us. I've come to learn a lot about myself and my patterns and toxic ways. Yes, I can be toxic. We all can be toxic, in my opinion. And I have come to the awareness even more of what toxic means in referring to the physiological toxic, you could say, stress-like response that we can create and elicit and experience in our bodies, right? Through our thoughts, feelings, focus, and yes, in our relations with each other and in relationships. It's for real. I think that's some of what this book is about. Helping me and you see how perhaps this whole quest of looking outside of ourselves for love is in itself inherently toxic, or at least loaded with toxic possibility. Whoa, there's a revelation. And where do we learn to look outside of ourselves? Are we born with this tendency or biological need? Well, I love that book, Attached, The New Science of Adult Attachment and How It Can Help You Find and Keep Love by Amir Levine and Rachel S.F. Heller. And I'm going to be referring to it throughout this book. I love that even in their description of various attachment styles and how some are more functional than others in getting our needs met, that yes, it does seem that in the research we find we may biologically crave emotional intimacy with other humans, and that we humans thrive most when we're in a connected feeling relationship, a healthy sort of partnership, whether romantic or not, all genders and relational styles included. So maybe something in us may pull us toward that intimacy and connection, and a desire for love and to love. But I would also propose, after some of my experiences in awakening, that we are very much conditioned to look outside of ourselves for love, validation, approval, through systems like traditional religion and traditional parenting. We literally are trained to look outside of ourselves for love in our culture. And the irony is, I now don't think we can find it outside of ourselves nor feel that love without fostering it within ourselves. I feel like the word love could also be interchanged with peace, even fulfillment, or satisfaction. We humans want to feel good. Some spiritual teachers say we're born to feel good. But it starts to become clear that the reason a lot of these approaches of spirituality and self-care lead us back to ourselves, and even reorienting toward cultivating, finding, and feeling that love and peace and fulfillment within, is because of the powerful possible shift for us in our experience. How much could it change and, yes, improve our experience and the experience of others if we were to shift this paradigm for ourselves to see and feel and connect with those feelings with ourselves, and yes, maybe in a spiritual sense, it doesn't have to be. How much could this shift our emotional and life experience, as well as our relationships with others? So here I am, in the process of refining this new awareness. And along the way, I have some stories and some adventures to tell you. Nothing too wild or dangerous, thankfully, and blessedly, I was never harmed in my various Tinder tales. I was lied to, catfished, ghosted, and in demand. It was fun to see how an almost 50-year-old MILF and yoga teacher got a lot of play on those dating apps. But what this book is about is my revelations along my journey, the emotional recovery I can see I've been doing, and yes, some funny and poignant scenes I want to share. My hope is that these tender tales of mine can be an agent of understanding and growth for you. Perhaps some entertainment, potentially some soul-filling inspiration for you to keep finding your ways to love you and your life in your own ways. Life is precious. I guess I just wanted to tell you the punchline of this book up front. Next, I look at my desire for liberation and tell you the story of T, my one female / non-binary love bomb. That one was rough on my heart. I fell in love, it seemed so quickly. But that's for chapter 2. See you there. So, yeah, that's the beginnings. I hope that starts to open you up to what this Tender Tinder Tales channel and book, and conversation that I want to start with more of you about these topics in what I feel like can be this more evolved, heartful, and even spiritual way. And really helping break down the barriers between, say, men and women, help things like romance and dating be a lot more of a pleasant and peaceful place for many of us to be. A lot less canceling, a lot less labeling and blaming, right? And more empowerment for us all. Much less more fun, romance, and even good sex, right? So, thanks for being here. Go ahead and subscribe if you want to stay tuned and hear the future chapters and conversations that are going to be happening as we move into this with the Tender Tinder Tales. And I'll also post a link if you want to get your copy on Amazon. I have it up for $16 right now, but love to share it with you. And not only the adventures, but the realizations and the awareness and the hope, really, that I bring through here. So thanks for listening. Sending so much love to you. Talk to you soon. Namaste.